Hi everyone, designers and whoever else is watching this video. My name is Ethan Green, and today I'm going to be providing you with my presentation on my concept for the play God of Carnage, written by Yasmina Reza. Yasmina Reza was born to a Russian-born Persian Jewish father who worked as an engineer, businessman, and pianist, and a Hungarian Jewish mother from Budapest who was a violinist. Reza began her artistic career as an actress, performing in contemporary plays as well as classics by Molière and Pierre de Marivaux. In 1987, she wrote Conversations After a Burial, which won the prestigious Molière Award, which is France's equivalent of a Tony for Best Author. And in the late 1980s, Reza also translated Roman Polanski's work in his stage adaptation of Kafka's Metamorphosis. Her second play, Winter Crossing, earned the 1990 Molière Award for Best Fringe Production, and her following play, The Unexpected Man, went on to run successfully in France, England, and in Germany, Scandinavia, and New York. Alright, so here we have a little bit of history about the play God of Carnage. It was originally written in French and premiered in Zurich in 2006. It was then later translated by Christopher Hampton, who, fun fact, also adapted Dangerous Liaisons, and the original Broadway cast had James Gandolfini, Jeff Daniels, as well as Hope Davis and Marcia Gay Harden as the four main characters. The Broadway version also won Tony for Best Play in 2009. So yeah, it's been done by big names, and what I love about the play itself is it's something rather small. It is a small, sort of what I call bottle episode of a play where so much unpacking of emotions and all these social masks kind of come off. And what is one of the main things I'm really drawn to the play is it's such a small setting. It's one, continuous long scene, no intermission, and it all takes place in this very, in my mind, just quaint, standard living room, and we can still elicit so much drama and so much comedy as well out of just these four characters put in one room together and forced to interact. While I know we've all read the play, just to get the broad strokes out of the way, here's a brief summary of the play. Two sets of well-meaning parents meet to discuss a playground fight between their sons, but what starts out as a polite conversation quickly and dramatically spirals into chaos. As tensions rise, social niceties crumble, alliances shift, and the adults reveal themselves to be just as petty, aggressive, and emotionally volatile and immature as the children they have come to defend. God of Carnage is a darkly comedic look at the thin line between civility and savagery. So, one of the reasons I am drawn to this play is I really appreciate the theme of civility versus savagery. This idea of people wearing these polite, well-mannered social masks, and that there's not really anything genuine behind it. It's people going through their days wearing these masks, kind of sliding around each other, just with the polite manners of society kind of get them by. And I find this play fascinating because it puts four characters who just follow that trend in a situation where that becomes difficult to impossible as their circumstance goes on. One of the things I really find enjoyable about this is how realistic and how slow of an arc it takes for us to get to four characters who are having a, mildly tense but really civil, interaction. Of course, it's an unfortunate circumstance with both their kids and what happened, but for all intents and purposes, it starts off in a very polite, very, confrontation averse way. And then to see that kind of get torn down and deteriorate into what it becomes is such a fun thing, I think, would be to direct as a director. To kind of see your actors and put them in this one spot of this, okay, you're going to act this way. This is going to be just the circumstances you're in. And to see it just deteriorate like this domino effect of carnage into the chaos it eventually becomes.
2,000 years later.
All right, so without any further ado and without any further preamble, let's finally get into the concept for this play. So let's start off with the first design element that I find to be one of the most important in plays is color. I really do think color is a really important facet of both costumes and just bring the whole design of the show into a cohesive whole. The color scheme I kind of went with for Veronica and Michael's house is yellow and blue. Why I choose that? I really think that they complement each other really well. I think there's a duality with a perceived look at yellow and blue. Yellow being happy, blue kind of being more moody, melancholy. And I think having both these colors together really suits the household and the underlying tension that Michael and Veronica have. There's yellow all around. There's, the semblance of joy and the semblance of happy and things are working with blue undertones that kind of undercut that. It still makes a cohesive, comfortable look, but it still is a noticeable contrast between the two colors. Kind of like there's a noticeable contrast between the thought processes and, beliefs of Michael and Veronica. So here's some basic facts about the colors yellow and blue. Yellow and blue are both primary colors on the traditional RYB red, yellow, blue color wheel, and primary colors cannot be created by mixing other colors. They are building blocks of all other hues in the system. And when yellow and blue are mixed, they create green, which is a secondary color. Green, I also think is funny because it indicates in certain situations nausea, which, is what Annette very much suffers from in the play quite a few times just due to the stress of it. But I do think that, there's a funny little Easter egg nod for those who, pay attention to color and design. One of the main things I would like to emphasize, especially with the colors here, is I would love for the tulips to be yellow and for the vase to be blue. I think having that, the way that the ground plan, which you'll see soon enough, is set up, is kind of front and center. It's this focal piece on the coffee table. It really does encapsulate and kind of tie in all the blues and yellows around. We're going to start talking more about costume as well and how we're going to start implementing, for instance, Veronica's shirt having more tones of dark blue, which kind of tie her into the vase. The curtains on the window being yellow. We'll get all into that in a second, but yeah, one of the elements I think is really important to have this kind of color really be emblematic of is the vase of tulips. And here we have a bit of inspiration for my lovely set designers. Thank you so much for participating in this project. This is what I more than the colors, because I mean, yes, the yellow and blue is really nice. I do think that yellow is a shade too dark for my liking, but the setup is very similar to the ground plan, which we'll see coming up. We have this couch that's facing, directly outwards toward the audience. We do have that yellow, almost vermilion, maybe I'm colorblind, but that yellow chair to the right there. And that would be where I would like Michael's chair to be. However, instead of Michael having a signature piece of furniture that kind of coincides with the room, it's going to be something that really doesn't match. It's something starkly different. I'm thinking of like a leather like chair that belongs more in like a study than it would out in the living room. And I think that's a subtle clue as to, Michael not really fitting in this space. A lot of this is Veronica's taste, Veronica's style, and this is Michael's small island that he kind of sequesters himself in and takes pot shots at Veronica at and will retreat to, when she winds up getting fed up with him and finally hitting him. And here is the reference photo for Michael's chair. And moving on to lighting. First up, this is a picture I found of a sunset through a window. One of the biggest pieces of set design and lighting design accompanying with that I have for this play is I would like there to be a large window It should be behind the couch, kind of just facing out to the sun. There'll be curtains like strewn to the sides of it. It doesn't have to be anything big or gaudy, and depending on the space we use, that could even be relegated to the side. But one of the most important things is, because this takes place in November in New York in the afternoon, by the time that they are starting, it will be roughly golden hour going into sunset. By the time the 90 minutes is done, theoretically, if I've done my math right, we should be actually at sunset, this dusky orange, orange red. And what I like about, again, big color guy, I think it would be a really cool feature as the play goes on for it to have this slow, very slow fade of this golden orange, gravitating more towards like a blood orange to even like a shade of red almost. The heat's intensifying, the pressure cookers keeps going. We have these four characters who are going back and forth. Tensions and emotions are running high. And I think it's, when you think of, the word carnage, this god of carnage, the color that comes to my mind is red. And I think it'd be a really cool feature lighting wise to kind of show the progression of the whole stage as a whole, kind of being bathed in this orange yellow light with still, natural lights and neutral lighting coming from the ceiling, but still have this accent, this tint of dark orange going into almost a red by the end of the play. And here we have a couple examples of some neutral lighting, just from regular lamps. Some overhead lighting I think would really suit this play and kind of give it like this proscenium frame, having the light come up from the top and having it being so symmetrical with the ground plan. I think that would look really nice. I'm also not opposed to having some standing lamp or some other motivated lighting being implemented later on too. I'm 100% open to any and all ideas. And that brings us to costumes, starting off with Veronica. I love the idea of Veronica dressing for comfort over aesthetic. I also think it should tie in with the established color scheme, blues and yellows. This blue cardigan works great. This blue and yellow flannel I also think really works. I see either of these being a good potential inspiration for our costume designers. Next up, followed by Alan, businessman. He's a lawyer. A stock standard, very expensive suit accompanied by an expensive watch would suit him just fine. Something stylish, but nothing too over the top. And then I think Annette, she's interesting. I was not able to really land on an idea for a costume specifically that I liked more than the other. She's in wealth management, so she's going to need something that's going to make her look, well, like someone who has wealth to manage. I think there's a variety of options, and I think our costume designers are going to do a great job. They can go nuts with it. I think this post is just, it's something I found on Pinterest that just perfectly encapsulates her character, and I think this could serve as really good inspiration. Any of these little mini images and this quote, I think, really does resemble Annette quite well. And bringing us last up to Michael. These are just a couple ideas. I think, again, dressing more for texture than for style. I don't think he should be in anything blue and yellow. I don't think he should match the aesthetic of the room or the aesthetic of Veronica. It kind of shows that opposition to her in aesthetics as well as, moral beliefs and ideologies. I think any of these would work, or something along these lines would suffice. And that brings us lastly to our ground plan. So I had to redo a portion of this. I had my living room set up a little too far back. It kind of was causing a bit of a traffic jam with movement, with characters being able to get around the bar and the stools, which again was also awkward to angle. It was at an awkward angle. So what I did was I brought the whole living room down just a scotch, just to give them more ample space to move around. I also corrected the angle of the bar. I think it just, while I was trying to cheat it out, I do think it kind of ruined the verisimilitude of the image, and it really should have been just more of a realistic looking counter with bar stools, and I think it looks much better now. I also tweaked the alignment of the door over on stage right. I adjusted that as well as the set wall as well, and moved the bookshelf from being kind of hanging out in limbo right behind the couch to a more realistic spot on the side of the door. And that door, by the way, is what leads to the restroom area. And so, yeah, here a lot of it is going to be just in this center area. I tried to make it pretty evenly balanced with just set pieces on both sides. We do have the 4 chairs in front where they're going to be sitting, drafting the statement. Eventually, when Annette gets sick, she does gravitate and move towards the sofa. Alan is up and down. He's never sitting in his chair for more than a minute. He's always answering his phone, pacing. Michael will sit up from his leather chair to either make a point or to go and get the drinks or the hair dryer to go and do the back and forth stuff. But when he's challenged or when he's kind of been verbally or physically smacked, he recoils back into that chair like a turtle kind of going back into its shell. There should be a lot of crossing in this, going back and forth on both sides, walking around behind the couch. It should feel almost like this courtroom drama-esque scenario of people utilizing the full width of the space to kind of make their point and kind of just travel back and forth. All the while, we have the window in the back, which I did not include in this ground plan. This was an idea I kind of came up with a little bit later, to have this orange light shining through this red, and as like the battle and the intensity of it gets more heated, that color does reflect the nature of the situation. And that is going to conclude my presentation of my concept for the play God of Carnage. Thank you so much for listening in, and have a great rest of your day.